Hello, welcome back to the Ninja G channel. Now, somebody suggested to me that I should make videos about my game development process, because I don't just play games, I also enjoy creating games. You might have seen the Blood Mage videos. I made those way back in 97, 98, 99. So I've been enjoying the game development process for many years, mostly mostly as like an amateur, just doing stuff for my own benefit. But, I have been paid to make games in the past, so I guess I'm semi-amateur, semi-professional sometimes. Anyway, I've got a bunch of software here queued up. I have Photoshop, and here in Photoshop I've opened a new picture, and it's 32 by 32. Now, what I'm working on is a Zelda clone, and so what I need is a variety of textures that I can use for the ground that you walk on. And I've got a texture folder, and the texture folder is just full of all sorts of useful textures like this. And I've picked out this grassy bank here, grassy bank. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go into my 32 by 32 tile, and I'm going to paste it in, and you can see that it comes out looking rather pixelated. Now I can use Control minus and Control plus to zoom in and out. So I'm going to try to resize this a little bit and get myself what looks like a decent grassy texture. I can zoom it all the way in, or crunch it all the way in, and I can get that, or I can zoom out and get sort of a piece of it. I think I'm going to put it about there, and then wrong button. So then I can just click over in the tools and say apply. And that gives me this little piece of grass right here. Now I'm going to Control A to select the area there, and I'm going to go up here to Image Crop, and that's going to cut out whatever excess was outside of the actual bounds of the picture. Now I'm going to take this, and to make sure that it's going to tile properly, I have to go to Offset, which is Filter, Other, Offset. Now it's 32 by 32, so I'm going to offset by 16 in both directions, and that's going to move it over halfway and move it up halfway. And it looks like it matches pretty well along the center seam, but along the horizontal seam it's a little weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the Clone Stamp tool, and I'm going to tweak my opacity a little bit. I don't want it to be too opaque. I just want sort of like a little bit of flow and a little bit of opacity, around 25 maybe. And the brush is way too big, so I'm going to click this arrow and I'm going to go down to, I don't know, like 9? Yeah, maybe that's too much. 5. 5 is good. So now I've got my brush selected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Alt to get the picker. And I'm going to pick this darker patch here, and then I'm going to click the left mouse button while I have the picker selected, and that's going to pick that area right there. So then I can go up here, and I can sort of lightly paint where the plus is into the area where the circle is. And this will give me a little bit of a better gradual kind of change from the darker bottom half up into the lighter top half. And I'm just going to sort of paint this in, moving upward to get sort of a nice blend. That's looking pretty good. If I go to actual pixels, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look like this tiny little blip of green and brown, and that's fine. That's fine. I can work with that. So the next step, now that I have a good grassy texture, is that you need to intermix your grassy textures with other kinds of textures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my repetitive textures, and I'm going to try to find some other useful textures that I can mix it up with. Let's see, I've got new textures. Nah, I'm not going to use one of those. Maybe stone? Loose stones and gravel? Fine gravel. I'm going to drag that one in. Alright, so I've got this fine gravel here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create another new 32 by 32. Now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. My Photoshop has a tendency to crash a lot. I don't know why. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this other texture that I've made. And generally for the software which I use, which is Yo-Yo Games Game Maker Studio, they like things to be in PNG format. I mean, you can also do JPG and it'll work just as well, but PNG is generally the standard. Because it's not really compressed, I don't think. And I'm just going to name this one Grass Tile 1. Alright. Save that one. One in the bank. One and done. Well, not really done. So I have to make this one. So I'm going to go back over to the fine gravel texture. I'm going to Control A, Control C to copy. And I'm going to go over into the Untitled one and Control V to paste. That's going to drop it in there. So then I can move it around. I think I'm going to move down towards the bottom and try to find a patch that's not that doesn't have a lot of stuff around the edges so that it'll tile well. Maybe there. That might do. And then I'll Control A and crop, just like I did on the last one. And then I'm going to offset. Now I can just click Filter and Offset. This top one is going to be whatever I did last, and since I'm just offsetting, I can do it over again. And this actually tiles pretty nice. I think that works well. There's nothing really wrong with that. I don't see any weird seams, so I think that's going to work just fine. So then I'm going to save this one as gravel tile, I suppose. I just have to set it to PNG. Gravel tile 1. Alright. So that's two textures in the bank. But the way tiling works in video games is you want to have tiles that you can mix and match and ones that sort of like blend together. So to get a good blend, I'm going to take this gravel tile here and I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go back over into my grass tile here and I'm going to Control V to paste, and it's just going to add a layer. So I have layer 1 is grass, layer 2 is gravel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another layer. I can use this create a new layer button here and it's going to give me a blank layer. And I'm going to go over to this tool here. This is the gradient tool, and I'm going to pick the left to right gradient, and I've got white and black. And then I'm just going to try to select on the left side of my picture and drag a line to the right side of my picture and make sure that it's a nice straight line that goes all the way across. Alright, so now I have a nice blend from black to white. So I copied that layer and then I made it invisible. And I'm going to go down to layer 2 and I'm going to use this button down here. This is the add layer mask. So I've added a layer mask. Then I'm going to make sure the mask is the one that's selected and I'm going to paste. Never mind. I'll just create a new gradient. I guess it's not going to let me paste into that. That's fine. I can make do without that. I can just draw a new one, and there we go. So now what we have is the gravel layer on top has this gradient blend over top of the grass layer, and it's seamlessly blending the grass into the gravel. So that's fine. I'm going to go and save that one. I'm going to go down to PNG again, and I'm going to save that one as grass gravel tile 1. All right. Okay. So that's good, but to do like proper tiling, you need to be able to blend from one to another in several directions. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my gradient. I'm actually still in the layer, so I can just go right here and I can just lay a new gradient over top of the old one. Try to get a nice straight line like last time, and bam. So here it's gradient bottom to top. So that's fine. Save that one. And so basically this is just sort of a repetition. You want to get a variety of directions, up, down, left, right, and then make corners. So corners will be the next thing on my list. Grass, gravel, 2. Now, I should probably go the other way also, because sometimes you'll want to go from grass to gravel, and sometimes you'll want to go from gravel to grass. So I can go up here, and I can drag a line down instead of up, and that flips it. PNG. Grass, gravel, tile 3. And then I'll do one more from right to left. Grass, gravel, tile 4. Okay. So now I'm going to have to mix it up a little bit. How should I do this? This is where it's going to get a little bit tricky, because I've got to make sort of a curved gradient, which means I'll probably have to blend a couple gradients. Alright, let me clear out the gradient completely. Now, I'm still on the gradient setting, but I'm going to set the opacity to 50, and I'm going to do like a top to bottom gradient. And then I'm going to do a left to right gradient. I'm not too sure that worked out. Let me clear that. Maybe I can do a selection and I can get part of it. So I'll do a top selection, and with the top selection I'm going to gradient left to right. Alright, so that just did the top right corner, and then I can do a bottom selection. The bottom selection, I'm going to do a bottom to top gradient. Nope, that didn't really work. Let me go back up to 100% opacity and top to bottom gradient. That gives me a little bit of a grass blend here and nothing at the bottom, and then I'll get the top half of it selected. And on the top half, I'm going to gradient from left to right. I don't know if that's going to work either. It's closer to what I wanted, but it's not quite perfect because you can see there's a little bit of green down here, which isn't really what I want. What I want is just a half section. I'm going to create a new one, and the new one is going to be double size in both directions. I'm going to blow that up big here. I'm going to get rid of the mask so I just have the regular tile. I'm going to plunk that down in here. Ooh, why am I losing my color? Maybe I'll take this one and I'll delete that layer. I don't need that. I don't want to be grayscale. It appears what it's doing is it's put me into a grayscale because it's stupid, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to RGB it. RGB is what I want. Now I have the regular color tile. And then I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to go to the grass layer and copy that one. And I'm going to drop that in here also. I'm actually going to do 3 grass ones. How about that? And then I'll move them. Now I can move it with the top tool, the move tool here, or I can use the left-right arrows to move it 1 pixel at a time. So that's just going to help me get things in the right positions. Okay. So essentially what I want is I want sort of the blend from one to the other that's going to wrap around. Now I've already got this one down in the bottom left and I've already got this one in the top right, but what I need is the little go-between here on the side. So I'm going to go back to my folder with my things here and I'm going to open up this one. I'm going to move it up on my layers here. Now I'm going to move it down here. So that's that one. And then back to these. Then I need the left-facing one. I'm going to drag that in here. Copy that one and paste it in here. And I'm going to move that one up here. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like when I have a section where it's in a corner and I want sort of a little bit of a curve in between here and here. Now to get that to look right, it's going to be tricky. So these are the layers that I'm working with here. This one and this one. I'm trying to blend that into that. So then I'm going to add another one of these layer masks. I'm going to go back to my gradient tool. Now maybe I can use the round gradient to get the effect that I'm looking for. I'll try selecting right in the middle and drag it out to about there and see if that's going to give me the effect I'm looking for. It's similar. It's not exactly right. I can fix this by going to image, adjustment, and invert. And I can invert that so that it's the other way around. And this is actually looking pretty good, but it's not quite perfect. It could be just like a little bit better. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to make that one black, and I'm going to select this and make that one white. Then I'm going to go back to the center, and I'm going to drag down, maybe not all the way. I did it again. Well, same as before. Adjustment, invert. That is actually looking exactly the way that I want it to. That is just about perfect. So I'm going to copy that and create a new one that's 32 by 32. I'm going to zoom that in and paste. Oh, I pasted the wrong one. Undo. Let's go back here and take a look at this. Let me hit Control E to merge down, and that's going to give me the combined effect. And then Control C to copy, and then paste what I just made there. And here it's doing it again. So I'm going to go back into mode, RGB, because I want a color one, not a black and white one. So let me just make sure this is in the right position. It looks good. Is that really what I had? Yeah, it's pretty close. Close enough that it's not noticeable. Alright, so that's good. I can use that. I'm going to save as. PNG, and maybe I should give this one like a slightly different name. Grass, gravel, BR for bottom right tile. Maybe I'll make that gravel to grass instead of grass to gravel, because it's the gravel up here going down to the right. In English, we read left to right, so my naming convention could be left to right. Naming conventions are really important because you want to be able to identify your files easily. So, in fact, I could probably go back in and improve things a little bit on how I've named things so far, just to organize better. Now, I don't really need most of these here, so I'll just close all that. So I've still got my template here, and this is a useful template. Because it's got all the different pieces. And I can just easily copy paste to get the different parts that I need. So that was the bottom right. Now I would have to make a different one for each of the surrounding pieces, which is basically just repetition again and again and again. I've got my Red Bull, so I've got lots of energy for this sort of thing. Now another way to make tiles is this program here called Pyxel Edit Beta. This is really useful. I can actually import images, and I can find my folder. And then these images that I just made, I can actually import these ones. And the pixel editor here is good for modifying things. I'm not really used to using this because I haven't used it much in weeks or months even. And the trick would be getting this tile into there. So I'm actually going to cancel that. Now, I've got this sheet here that's got a bunch of tiles, and I'm going to go to New, and here you have like options for how many tiles you want to have on a single sheet. If I go into Game Maker Studio and I go to my backgrounds, if I click on this, you can see this is an example of a background that I didn't make. And you can see this one has 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got quite a few tiles going across. But when I'm working in the level editor, I go down to rooms here, and I have room 3, which is sort of a test level that I've been working on. When I go to tiles, if I load up a tile like background 3, that one I just had open, then you can see like I can put that tile in there. I'm not going to use that one. I'm actually going to open test big tiles, and this is sort of like a blown up version because I wanted to go 640 by 480 with 32 by 32 tiles instead of it was previously 16 by 16 tiles. Now when I'm in the level editor, the tile picker on the left here fits into the top left corner, and so when I'm making the tile set, I really want to try to make it in sort of a rectangle where it's fewer across than it is down. That way it's going to fit nicely. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 across is a pretty good number because then I can leave it like this, and this gives me a big work area to work on stuff here in the actual work area. And I can easily go over here, pick a tile, and plunk those tiles down. I really want to deselect delete underlying because that's sort of an annoying feature where it deletes the tiles. It thinks that the tiles around it are touching it, and then it deletes them. You can see here this is pretty easy to just plunk down sort of like a little bit of a grassy texture here and there, which breaks up just the flat green. And let's see, I'll shrink that back down. So I want to do 10 across and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 10 across and 16 down. It's probably going to work pretty good for me. So back here in Pyxel Edit, under the new document, tiles wide 10, tiles high 16, tile width 32, tile height 32. And okay. So I can get rid of that other one. And now I have this one right here. Now I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to get the draw tool, and I'm going to pick black, and I'm just going to draw a box. I'm going to try to be accurate. Clearly not very accurate. This is a lot easier if I use a stylus instead of a mouse. Alright, and then the erase tool, I'll just get rid of the extra bits, the little extra bits that I don't need. Alright, let's see if I remember how to do this. Yes, alright, so in Pyxel Edit, right-click selects a tile, and left-click places it. So I can go around and I can get sort of tiles like that. This might actually be a bad idea. Maybe I should make a solid square that's it's got all one color. I'll make this one like a dark gray, and then I'll make this one sort of a light gray. And then I can use this, I can put the light gray every other tile. And I'll make sort of a checkerboard. And I'll zoom way out just so I can do this quickly. And it's real easy to fix mistakes. So if I click the wrong box, it's no big deal. So in the game, this is going to have all of the tiles that I would use on maybe like one particular area of the map. Like, I could make a different sheet for grassy areas. I could make a sheet for mountainous areas. I could make a sheet for inside of caves. And maybe some tiles from one to another will be like the same kind of tile. Like, it won't have to be completely different on every single one of them. But just for different maps, I'll have like a different sheet that I can open that's specific to that kind of map. So if I'm making a swampy area, I'll have one sheet that's all swamps. If I have a water area, it'll just be like water tiles and islands, things like that. Now, tiles you don't really interact with. Anything that's going to be interactive in the world, like a thing that you can bump into or a thing that you can destroy or pick up, is all going to have to be objects. Tiles are never interactive in GameMaker Studio. You can change them, but it's sort of a pain and I almost never do it. Alright, so now I have my checkerboard, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that as PNG. Alright, checkerboard PNG. Save. Alright, so now I can shrink this away. I'll go back into Photoshop. And in Photoshop, I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to open the checkerboard PNG. So this is going to be like my master tile object. It's going to have all of my tiles in it that I'm going to actually use in the game. So I'm going to grab all of these tiles that I just made. So here I am. I'm back in Photoshop, and here you can see my somewhat completed field Tileset 2. And I will zoom in just a little bit so you can take a look. Now, I had worked on this section right here, and I had made the grass, and then I had made the rubble texture, and then I started combining them so that I would get sort of like the different sections. This is 9 by 9, or no, this is 3 by 3, 9 tiles total, and so we have like the left side where it blends from grass to rubble, and the right side where it blends from rubble to grass, and all the corner sections, and the center part is the full rubble tile, and over here we have the exact opposite of that. The center part is the full grass tile. And here we have some redundancy because the left of this set is the exact same thing as the right of this set. But I just put it in here just because it looks nice. And you can see I've repeated this for another texture where it's sort of a dirt texture. So I have grass, rocks, and dirt. You know, 3 primary types of terrain that you might encounter in a game. And so here we have the rubble going to dirt and the dirt going to rubble, and then down here we have dirt going to grass and grass going to dirt. And then to keep things really interesting, I've decided to add in some flavor flower textures that I can mix up in a large grassy area just to break it up a little bit. And this here, This is like a cliff wall, so the player could be running along this upper area and then jump down the cliff to the lower area. And I also made a cave that I can put in here that fits over one of these spots here, so that the player would be able to go into the cave and into the mountain. And then I made a hole in the grass, so I could have a grassy section with a hole the player could drop down. And I added this on the left and the right, so that this area here is where the player could drop down, so I wanted to make it so I could break it up if I have a section that goes very far, like a cliff that goes very far. I don't want it to all just be this tile here, so I had to have something that I could break it up with. And these sides here are interchangeable on the taller cliff also, so here and here they would go up on there. And then I also wanted to have sort of like a rubble that I could put along fences, along grassy areas, so I started making little in-between sections of grass and rocks that are thinner. And you can see there's a whole bunch of those. There's end pieces and end pieces in the other direction, and diagonals and corner pieces. And so all of this fits onto one big tile sheet. And then I take it into Game Maker Studio and I open this up as a background, and then in the background options I set it to have a tile width of 32 by 32, and it breaks it up into all of these little tiles here. And then I hit OK, and then when I come into the level I can click on tiles and I can click on undefined, and I can set this for field tile set, and that's going to open up the tile set which I've created. And if I drag this over, I can get the whole thing in there. So that's what I've got so far, that whole tile set there. And then I've come over here and I've taken that tile set and I've actually started laying it down and mixing it in with the grass that I've made. So you can see that I've got the little Zelda sprite there, and I've got a whole bunch of grass, and these are sort of like the thin rock areas that I was going to put fences along. And there's some pots, and there's the cave structure. You can see I've got this invisible wall that prevents the player from going up, and an invisible wall that prevents the player from going over where the cliff wall is. He bumps into a wall there. And then down here is the cave. Now, I noticed once I started putting this together I was actually missing something, because if you look here where the cliff walls actually go over and then up and then over and then up, I'm actually missing a texture that would connect this area and this area. I have nothing that would really fit in that corner there. So what I would then have to do is I would have to go back into my Photoshop document and find like a section here and a section here, and then put them together and try to create sort of a blend between the two. And I've also noticed that right here where the side walls connect, it doesn't really blend properly, so then I would have to go back in and I'd have to try to either make an extra texture for the upper part of a double height cliff wall. And also you can see there's a little bit of a seam here which I would want to fix. Generally, just like looking at how it connects together, you want to try to find anywhere where it doesn't look quite right and fix it. And that's the basics of building a tile set. It's not too difficult. It is a little bit time consuming. You can see I cut in between where you saw me make the first 9 tiles and where I have the whole tile sheet done, because that would be an incredibly uninteresting video just watching me make repetitive tiles for hours, literally hours. But that is the process. That's how it's done. Now, having done it, there is a certain repetition to the tiles, and it might be a good idea to make a section where the grass isn't so thick, maybe where the underlying color could actually show through, and there would just be a little bit of an overlay of sorry, getting my keyboard in position. An overlay of a bit of a grass texture over a solid color, and then I could put the solid color that would cover the entire map, and the grass would just go over top of it, so that I would only have to put a little bit of grass here and there instead of having to put like a grass tile down in every single space. So that's one way to do it. Here you can see I'll pick up a pot and I'll throw it. Pick up a rock and throw that. So here we have the mountain, and that actually works pretty well, where I can run face first into the mountain, but I can't pass through it. I've got the grass here, I can chop the grass, choppity-chop. And all those thin sections of rock wall work pretty well. This actually isn't going to mess anything up because everything still works the way it should. It just doesn't have the texture yet, and I could always add that in later. I got my little bow and arrow that I can shoot. I put some work into the grass texture where I can sort of walk behind it, and it's slightly transparent. You can see yourself a little bit behind it, but then if you step on top of it, you're out in front. You can see the grass is broken up by these flower sections, so even after I've cut down all of the grasses, it's not just one flat, repeating texture of grass. You can actually see there is a little bit of a repeat. When you have repetition like that, that's not too good. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. I did a pretty good job of it, but I might go back to the drawing board and make a new grass texture that blends a little bit better, because you can see a tiny bit of a seam in it that I hadn't noticed early on. Or I could make more grass textures. I could make an entire grass sheet that has like a different interior. So it would be like a sheet of 9 tiles where they are all grass, but the inside looks different from the outside, but the outside would blend. So you would get sort of the blend between this and this, but then there would be something different here, and that would break it up in a bigger sort of way. There's lots of different things that could be done that would improve it. But that's the basics of tiling a Zelda-type game. So I'm going to draw this video to a close. I hope you enjoyed my little tutorial, and that's all for today.